Welcome to Second Take, the show that focuses on the issues behind the news. A step change is needed in the safety performance of the South African mining industry if it is to attain its zero harm goal before 2040. Mining Weekly editor Martin Creamer tells us more. Welcome, Martin.
Thanks, Shannon.
South Africa's mining industry is actively seeking to reduce the number of mine fatalities and has reduced that number quite significantly. What's the current number and how has that reduction been achieved?
Well, we've so far this year, 87 people have died versus 89 for the year before. So we have been performing well when you look at the graphs over 10 years, but it's a relative well. We outperforming the United States and we're outperforming Australia and Canada because we've had such a huge volume of people dying. And therefore, we're coming off a base which just has to reduce. 270 people dying in the year in 2003. That was the starting point when 10 years ago they said by 2013, we will have reduced our fatalities to zero. We'll have got to zero harm. Well, we're at 2013 now, and we see that there's still 87 deaths. So although we've outperformed over a 10-year period, the other areas of the world where there's deep level mining, it's still the numbers are still really large. And with this Ngula tragedy and 6 people dying there, that really pushed up the rate at which people are dying, in our underground facilities. Although that was a totally different thing in Ngula because they're excavating for a pumped storage scheme. So it's not really a mine, but it falls under this category, so it has to be added. So it's taken it to 87 people so far this year versus 89 people the year before. So we really, in real terms, are only 2 behind.
How have they achieved the reductions?
These nets and bolts have been phenomenal. So, the biggest death rate had come from fall of ground. So, after you blast, there's a lot of seismic action and, you have these rock falls and it's like 50 bags of cement coming down on you. There's no chance you're going to survive. But what they've done is they now hold that rock up with a system of nets and bolts. And even that activity is creating a new economy. I was looking at the figures of the number of people employed, and there's a substantial number of people employed, just in the business of nets now and bolts. So it does create other economies. And it is doing a fantastic job because it reduced the fatalities from fall of ground by 80%. Now that is a big number. And there's also, the situation of proximity and detection systems. And we've had that situation in the BHP Bulletin mine where a person was saved. The person had a medical condition and collapsed and was lying in the roadway, and one of these big underground coal vehicles just stopped in its tracks, and nobody knew why because it was so dark, and that life was saved. And that's just typical of what's happening with these proximity detection systems, that the vehicle, an underground vehicle, will cease, it'll stop, it'll trip. If there is a person in its way that has on the helmet a device which sets off stopping action for the vehicle.
The Chamber of Mines head of safety, Sitsa van der Woude, is concerned that it will take until 2040 to reach levels of less than 5 fatalities a year.
Yeah, so although the trends are so positive, we're coming down. We're actually performing better than the US, better than Canada, and particularly Canada because that's the Ontario benchmark. They've also got mines that you can compare with us from a depth, and also Australia. So we're performing better than them if you look at general performance on a graph. But if we continue at this performance rate, which sounds good, it's going to take till 2040 to actually get to a level where you kill 5 people a year, as it were. So they're just saying that there's got to be a step change now, and it's got to involve a more intensive use of the net and bolt systems, more intensive use of the proximity detection systems that stop vehicles that are going to collide with people. a new way of mining they're looking at, because many of the big majors are trying to mine differently. You know, you've got Rio Tinto with enormous plans of how to mine in the future. Our Anglo-American has got their own plans, and BHP Billiton as well. And from the hard rock point of view and from gold mining point of view, we know that Anglo Gold Ashanti, wants to introduce a completely new technology, which they call the South African technology, which is a raise boring technology, and you remove the gold through a technique that doesn't have any blasting, which is safer in itself. So people are coming through with that, but there's still going to be a bit of a time lag before these can be introduced, and so that they're wanting to see something very different, because nobody can really tolerate what's going on. It's just taking too long.
So it's about embracing new methods and new technologies.
It's about embracing new methods and new technologies, new ways of doing things, new ways of mining, completely innovation, and nobody's really spelling it out in great detail. They're all waiting for something to arrive. They know that it's happening in the background, but to actually implement it is going to be difficult, but they're determined that it'll have to be done. We even had that situation of a new blasting technique that is safer. So many of these have been in the archives for a long time, and I think they've rolled them out too late. But that's what they say is needed now. Otherwise, we're going to just have these fatalities continuing and to come down, but not at a pace that'll take us to zero harm, which is where everybody wants to get.
Now, can you tell us a bit about the proposed plans for the Centre of Excellence in Mining Health and Safety? Yes,
this Centre of Excellence for Mining Health and Safety, it has been on the cards for too long as far as I'm concerned. I mean, I've been hearing about it. I would rather see something done. It's still this tripartite and collaboration, but to me it doesn't move fast enough when one considers the urgency of the situation. That a lot of these miners have many dependents, and when they die, the knock-on effect on the families is unbelievable. So I would like the state to talk less and actually move faster, the whole group of them to move faster towards this Centre of Excellence. They are talking about 2014, but can't give you any firm date. They are talking about it happening perhaps in a way that hasn't got a bricks and mortar headquarters. So it'll be something different, sort of a virtual type of connectivity between a whole lot of institutions that make up this excellence. But again, it is going to look at the things that the repercussions of new technology, for instance, the social repercussions, how those are going to be dealt with. That's all going to come into it. And if at the end of it all, we've got to be more productive as well, because we're falling behind on productivity. So this particular Centre of Excellence will be very holistic. It's the prime driver is to stop fatalities and to make sure that people are safe underground. But there will be so many there will be so many spin-offs from that they will have to have special studies to deal with those, and particularly the impact of these technologies. What is the impact on jobs, for instance, and how are those people going to be accommodated elsewhere? What is going to be the situation? Will they be retrained for other jobs? Or can the savings be so great with some of these technologies that you can actually use natural attrition to reduce your numbers over time?
Well, thank you very much, Martin.
It's a great pleasure, Shannon.
That's the show for today. Join us again next time for more news and insight into what's happening in the mining world.